"Shut up, you pauper," hissed the mother-in-law, and shoved her pregnant daughter-in-law in front of all the relatives. Olivia silently pulled out a letter and, smiling, handed it to her mother-in-law. Upon seeing what was inside, she collapsed. And before we continue, write in the comments from which country you're watching the video, and also check if you're subscribed to the channel, as I share interesting life stories with you every day. Okay, let's enjoy the story. Olivia felt completely out of place, like an uninvited guest at someone else's party. Her belly was already noticeably rounded, revealing her pregnancy, and every movement came with effort. But she knew she had to be here, at Regina's milestone birthday. The massive restaurant hall gleamed with gold and crystal. Guests, dressed in expensive outfits, chatted loudly, clinking champagne glasses. Olivia, in her modest dress, felt like a gray mouse among these flashy peacocks. She tried to stay in the shadows, but avoiding the sharp glances and whispers behind her back was impossible. Look at her, showing up like that, all pregnant. She caught a snippet of conversation from the table. Olivia lowered her eyes, trying to ignore it. She knew she wasn't liked in this family. Too young, too simple, too far from their elite circle. Regina, a domineering and haughty woman, never hid her disdain, and the other relatives, like a pack of jackals, echoed her, hoping to grab their piece of the pie. She remembered how she met her father-in-law, Harold Thompson, working as his caregiver after his stroke. He was lonely and frail, and she was kind and attentive. A special bond formed between them, based on care and gratitude. Harold saw in her what others missed, sincerity and heartfelt warmth. He often said she was a ray of light in his dark life. Caring for Harold became the meaning of Olivia's life. She read books to him, talked with him for hours, walked with him in the park. In return, he shared his memories, told her about his life, his mistakes, and disappointments. He saw how Regina and Brandon treated him with contempt, how they waited for his death to seize his fortune. Regina, perched at the head of the table like a queen, shot Olivia a scornful glare. Her face, already twisted in a grimace of displeasure, turned even more venomous. "Shut up, you pauper," she suddenly barked loudly at Olivia. Her voice cracked like a whip. All eyes turned to Olivia. Silence fell over the room. Olivia felt the blood rush to her face. The humiliation burned like acid. She lifted her head and looked straight into Regina's eyes. There was no fear or pleading in her gaze, only determination. Brandon, sitting next to his mother, averted his eyes. He didn't stand up for her, as usual. His silence hurt Olivia more than Regina's words. She had always hoped he'd take her side, protect her from his family's attacks. But he betrayed her again. Gathering her remaining composure, Olivia slowly pulled an envelope from her purse. She knew this moment had come. The moment of truth. "This is from Harold," she said calmly, handing the envelope to Regina. Her voice was steady and confident, despite the emotions raging inside. Regina took the envelope distrustfully. Her fingers trembled. She sensed something was wrong. Something was about to happen. "What is this?" she whispered, glaring at Olivia with hatred. "Read it," Olivia replied, "and you'll all find out." Regina snatched the envelope with shaking hands, as if it were a snake. Her face, previously contorted in anger, now showed a mix of disbelief and panic. She tore off the seal and pulled out the folded sheet of paper. The silence in the room grew so thick you could touch it. All eyes were fixed on Regina, waiting for what she'd say. She began reading aloud, stumbling and faltering. "My last will and testament. I, Harold Thompson, being of sound mind and firm memory, bequeath all my property to Olivia Marie, in gratitude for her care and devotion in the last years of my life." Regina's voice trembled and broke. She lifted her eyes from the letter. Her gaze was full of horror and incomprehension. This is nonsense. It can't be." Stunned silence gripped the room. The relatives, who had looked at Olivia with such contempt before, now shifted their gazes from her to Regina, trying to process what they'd heard. Even the usually noisy children fell quiet, sensing the tension in the air. Regina glanced at the letter again, as if hoping the words would change, turn into a joke. But no black on white. It stated what she couldn't accept. Everything she considered hers by right, Everything she lived for and prided herself on now belonged to this upstart, this nurse who had bewitched her husband. "This is a forgery," she screamed, throwing the letter on the table. "Olivia, you faked the signature. You always wanted nothing but money." Regina's words choked with rage. She jumped from her chair, ready to pounce on Olivia, but Brandon stopped her. He grabbed his mother's arm firmly, preventing her from doing something foolish. "Mom, calm down," he said quietly, looking into her eyes. "We need to figure this out." Regina yanked her arm free and stared at Brandon in bewilderment. "Figure it out? What's there to figure out? She's a fraud." "Mom," Brandon interrupted her. "I knew about this will." Silence fell again, this time even more deafening than before. Regina froze, as if struck by lightning. Her gaze, full of fury and hatred, now shifted to absolute shock. You knew," she whispered, not believing her ears. "And you said nothing?" Brandon looked away, unable to meet his mother's eyes. He felt guilty for betraying both her and Olivia. He knew his father had planned this long ago and hadn't dared to oppose him. He hoped it would somehow resolve itself, that his father would change his mind, that Olivia would refuse the inheritance. But now that everything was out, he had no choice but to confess. "Yes, Mom, I knew," he said, trying to speak as calmly as possible. "Dad told me about it a few months ago. You should have stopped him. You should have protected our family. And you just stood there and watched as he gave everything to this. Regina turned to Olivia again. Her eyes flashed like lightning. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "You think you'll get everything you wanted? I won't allow it. I'll contest this will. I'll prove you're a cheat and a swindler." Olivia watched Regina silently, showing no emotion. She had expected this reaction. She knew Regina wouldn't give up easily. But now, with the truth out, she felt stronger than ever. She had what Harold wanted to leave her, and she wouldn't let anyone take it away. "Regina," Olivia said calmly, "you have the right to contest the will. But I have all the necessary documents confirming Harold's true wishes, and I'm ready to fight for what's mine by law." Confidence rang in Olivia's voice, something no one had noticed before. She was no longer the timid, dependent woman everyone was used to seeing. She had been through so much and was now ready to defend herself and her child. Brandon looked at Olivia with admiration and sorrow. He realized she had changed, that he had lost her forever. He saw strength and resolve in her eyes that he hadn't noticed before, and he knew it was his own fault. "Liv," Brandon said, "I'm sorry. I should have always been on your side." Olivia looked at Brandon with a sad smile. "It's too late, Brandon. You made your choice, and I've made mine." She stood from her chair, feeling fatigue and heaviness in her legs. She needed to leave this place, this atmosphere of hatred and malice. She needed to think about how to move forward. "I'm leaving," Olivia said, addressing everyone present. "Thanks for the warm welcome." She turned and headed for the exit, holding her head high with pride. No one tried to stop her. Everyone was too shocked and confused to do anything. Brandon watched her from the window, feeling his heart tear apart in pain. He realized he had lost not just the inheritance, but the woman he loved, and he knew it was his own fault. He had betrayed both her and his father. He had proven weak and cowardly, and now all he had left was regret for his mistakes. The relatives, like a swarm of enraged bees, surrounded Regina after Olivia left. Loudest of all was Cousin Clara, known for her knack at spotting profit in any situation. "This is outrageous. We've come to this." Some caregiver wrapped us all around her finger. Regina, usually commanding and unflappable, now seemed lost, broken by grief and humiliation. Brandon stood aside, leaning against the wall, observing with a detached expression. Guilt ate him from inside, like acid. He knew the truth, knew about the will, and his silence had become a betrayal toward Olivia. The decision to contest the will was unanimous. Regina, spurred on by the relatives and determined to reclaim what was hers, hired the best lawyers in the city. They assured her there were chances, that they could pressure Olivia, accuse her of selfish motives, of manipulating a dying old man. Regina clung to this hope like a drowning person to a straw. Meanwhile, Olivia, gathering her remaining pride and dignity, turned to a lawyer recommended by an old friend of Harold's. He was a solid middle-aged man with a sharp gaze and calm confidence in his voice. His name was Mark Reynolds. He listened carefully to her story, studied the will and other documents, and assured her everything was impeccably prepared. Harold was a foresightful man, Mark said. He knew who he was dealing with. We have every reason to believe we'll win this case. The first court hearing was set for a few weeks later. The courtroom was packed. Not even an apple could drop. All of Regina's relatives showed up, along with journalists drawn to the scandalous story and curious onlookers. Regina sat in the front row with her head held high, radiating confidence. Next to her was Brandon, gaunt and pale. Olivia held herself calmly, though inside she trembled. She felt the hateful, contemptuous stares on her. Beside her was Mark, exuding calm and professionalism. Regina's lawyers hammered on the fact that Olivia was just a caregiver, the wife of his son, not a blood relative. She had no right to the vast fortune. They tried to portray her as a mercenary type, a gold digger after rich old men. They claimed Harold was in a dire state when drafting the will, under the influence of medications, and couldn't comprehend the consequences of his actions. Mark parried all their arguments clearly and confidently. He presented the court with notarized documents confirming the will's authenticity. Then he called the caregiver who had worked with Harold before Olivia. The caregiver, an elderly woman named Beatrice Grant, described how Harold suffered from loneliness and misunderstanding from his family. She spoke of his kindness and responsiveness, how he valued human warmth and care. The family rarely spent time with him, Beatrice said, only when they needed something. But Olivia, she was like a daughter to him. She cared for him with love and patience. He grew very attached to her. Then Mark presented medical records and entries from Olivia's journal, detailing her care for Harold. There were notes on medications, procedures, feedings, sleepless nights spent at his bedside. These documents showed that Olivia didn't just do her job, she poured her soul into it. The most unexpected moment was the appearance of the notary who had certified the will. He confirmed that Harold was of sound mind and firm memory when signing the document. He told me, the notary recalled, that he wanted to ensure his wishes were carried out, that Olivia got what she deserved. Regina's lawyers tried to challenge the notary's testimony, but in vain. Their arguments seemed unconvincing and strained. During the break between sessions, Brandon approached Olivia. He looked tormented and depressed. "Liv," he said quietly, "I want to apologize for everything. I know I betrayed you. I shouldn't have stayed silent. I should have supported you." Olivia looked at him with sorrow. "It's too late, Brandon," she replied. "Now live with it." Tears welled in Brandon's eyes. He wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. After the break, the court ruled in Olivia's favor. The will was deemed valid, and all of Harold's property passed to her. Regina was furious. She screamed, accused Olivia of every mortal sin, threatened to appeal, but the court's decision was final and not subject to appeal. Leaving the courtroom, Olivia felt relief. The battle was over. She had won, but there was no joy. The victory had cost her too dearly. She had lost her husband, her family, her love, but gained freedom and independence. After the trial, Mark informed Olivia that Regina and Brandon had no right to a mandatory share in the inheritance. Harold had taken care of that in advance, preparing all documents to protect Olivia as much as possible. "He loved you very much," Mark said, "and wanted you to be happy." Olivia thanked Mark for his help and support. She felt indebted to him. He wasn't just her lawyer. He had become her friend. That same day, Olivia decided to leave Brandon. She could no longer live with a man who had betrayed her. She understood he was weak and dependent on his mother, but that didn't excuse his actions. In the evening when Brandon returned home, Olivia waited for him with her things packed. "I'm leaving," she said, looking him straight in the eyes. Brandon tried to say something to justify himself, but Olivia stopped him with a gesture. "No need," she said. "It's over. I don't want to see you anymore." Brandon dropped to his knees and wept. He begged her to forgive him, to give him another chance, but Olivia was adamant. "Don't touch me," Olivia said quietly. Her voice sounded foreign, even to herself. "You made your choice, Brandon. You chose them." "But I love you, Liv," he exclaimed, desperation in his voice. "I've always loved you. I thought if I sided with them, it would somehow ease the situation. I wanted you to be part of our family." Olivia smiled bitterly and joylessly. "Part of your family? Are you serious? They would never accept me. Never. And you didn't even try to protect me. You just stood there and watched as they humiliated me, as your mother spat on my soul." Brandon bowed his head. I know. I'm guilty. I understand you might never forgive me." "You're right, Brandon," Olivia replied. "I won't forgive not because I'm evil or vengeful, but because I can't anymore. I can't live in this lie. I can't pretend everything's fine when inside it's tearing apart. You betrayed me, Brandon. You betrayed me in the most despicable way. You knew I was pregnant. You saw how they treated me, and you still did nothing." He raised his tear-filled eyes to her. "What can I do, Liv? Tell me what I can do to make you forgive me." "I'll do anything." Olivia shook her head. "Nothing. Nothing can be done anymore. It's over, Brandon." "But what about the child?" he whispered. "I'll raise him myself," Olivia said firmly. "He'll know who his father is, but he'll never know what a coward you were." Brandon stood motionless, as if paralyzed. He looked at Olivia like a stranger. He saw such determination and strength in her eyes that he had never noticed before. He realized he had lost her forever. "Goodbye, Brandon," she said, and left the apartment, closing the door on her past forever. She moved to the country house that came to her through Harold's will. It was a large, cozy home surrounded by a picturesque garden. Here, she felt calm and safe. Here, she could start a new life away from intrigue and hypocrisy. She knew it wouldn't be easy. She'd have to raise the child alone, care for the house, handle finances. But she wasn't afraid of difficulties. She believed in her own strength. Regina stopped calling, stopped writing. She vanished from her life, as if she had never existed. Olivia didn't know what she thought or felt. She didn't care. She let her go, released all the anger and resentment she had harbored for years. She filed for divorce. The process was quick and painless. Brandon didn't object. He simply signed all the papers and disappeared from her life. Olivia felt relief, as if a huge weight had lifted from her shoulders. Olivia didn't just move into a house. It was the very family estate that had once seemed an impregnable fortress, a symbol of an alien, unattainable world. Now it was her world, her fortress. She looked at the tall pines surrounding the property, the manicured lawn, the house facade, in a strict yet elegant style. All this belonged to her, but not in the way Regina and her circle understood ownership. It wasn't just property. It was an opportunity to start fresh. The house was quiet and spacious. After the noisy city apartment, there was a special peace here. Olivia wandered the rooms, touching the antique furniture, inhaling the scent of wood and herbs drifting from the garden. She felt like both owner and guest, as if allowed to touch something sacred. The first days, she spent unpacking, arranging rooms, creating coziness. A small staff remained from Harold's time, the cook Martha and gardener Jack. They treated Olivia with respect and warmth, as if she were the owner's daughter returning home. Her pregnancy progressed calmly. Olivia strolled the garden, read books, listened to classical music. She tried to think positively, imagined her future child's face, their tiny hands and feet. Fear and uncertainty gradually receded, giving way to hope and anticipation. One evening, sitting on the terrace with a cup of herbal tea, Olivia pondered how to use her new position. Money, the house, freedom, all important, but something was missing. She wanted to do something useful, something meaningful. She recalled Harold's words, "Wealth is not just privilege, but responsibility." He always helped those in need, supported various charitable projects. Olivia decided to continue his work. Time passed. Olivia gave birth to a son. She named him Harry, in honor of her late father-in-law. Little Harry grew into a healthy, sturdy boy. He was surrounded by love and care. Olivia often thought of Harold. She imagined how happy he would be to see her content, to see her helping others. She felt his presence nearby, his support and love. Brandon sometimes called Olivia. He asked for forgiveness, said he loved her and missed her. Olivia responded politely but coldly. She couldn't forgive his betrayal. She knew they would never be together again. One day, Brandon came to her house. He stood at the gate, waiting for her to come out. Olivia emerged. She saw his gaunt face, his dull gaze. She felt pity for him. "Liv, forgive me," Brandon said. I know I did wrong. I was weak. I was afraid of losing you. You've already lost me, Olivia replied. And not because of the will, but because you couldn't support me in my time of need. I know, Brandon said. I understand. I just wanted to say I'm so sorry. I'm sorry too, Olivia said. But nothing can be undone. We have different paths. Brandon nodded. He turned and left. Olivia watched him go. She felt she was forgiving him, but she couldn't forget. Olivia lived her life. She raised her son, worked at the foundation, helped other women. She was happy. She had found her place in life. One day, walking with her son in the garden, Olivia stopped by an old apple tree. She remembered sitting there with Harold, how he told her stories from his life. She felt warmth and gratitude in her heart. She looked at her son. He ran joyfully on the grass, laughing and playing with butterflies. Olivia smiled. She knew everything would be fine. All right. Thanks for listening.